The story begins with a spaceship, which is millions of kilometers away from Earth, heading toward its destination. Inside the ship, 5,000 passengers and 228 crew members are sleeping in their pods. The entire spaceship functions on autopilot, meaning no humans are operating it. Instead, computers act as the pilots of the ship, using AI technology. The name of this ship is the starship Avalon. It is embarking on a journey spanning hundreds of light years away from Earth. The journey is so long that the relatives of the sleeping humans on board have already passed away, and their future generations have become elderly. However, due to cryo-sleep technology, these people's lives and time are paused while they sleep. Therefore, they will wake up centuries later as if they were young before falling asleep. The spaceship was progressing successfully on its journey until it encountered space debris, causing the entire ship's power to go out for a few seconds. As a result, the entire spaceship is temporarily engulfed in darkness. AI computers come into action to repair the ship. After the power is restored, one sleeping pod stops functioning, causing the passenger inside to wake up from his sleep. A computer welcomes them after 120 years of hibernation. A girl appearing on the screen reminds this person that he is a passenger on the starship Avalon, and that in just 4 months from today, they will arrive at a new planet called Homestead II. There, you are supposed to establish a human settlement. Until then, you can enjoy your time on the spaceship and build relationships with other fellow travelers. This person, whose name is Jim, roams around in this spaceship. However, no one else is awakened except him. The entire spaceship is deserted, and everyone is still asleep. Jim becomes quite distressed after seeing all this. During that time, he enters a holographic room where he can interact with the computer. Jim asks how many years have passed since they departed from Earth, and when they will reach their destination. In response, the computer says that they have been away from Earth for 30 years, and they will reach their destination in the next 90 years. However, a previous computer had already welcomed him after 120 years of hibernation. In fact, according to the program, all the passengers were supposed to wake up after 120 years, which is why the computer was programmed accordingly. However, Jim woke up 90 years earlier due to an accidental time glitch. Now Jim had two options. Either stay here for 90 years and eventually grow old and die, or enter cryo-sleep again, and wake up after 90 years in a youthful state, which was now a difficult task. Jim chose the difficult option. He made every effort to fix his sleeping pod and wanted to sleep in it, but he couldn't succeed. After that, he sent a message to Earth, describing the malfunction of his pod and the whole story of waking up early. He sent the message to Earth. After sending the message, the computer informed him that his message would reach Earth after 19 years, and he would receive a reply after a span of 55 years, because Jim was billions of kilometers away from Earth. After learning this, Jim becomes extremely distressed. Now he couldn't sleep for a long period, nor could he establish contact with Earth. Jim was trapped in this spaceship. Now Jim decides that he will try to live his life in the same way. He spends the whole day navigating the corridors of the spaceship. There was no human voice he could hear. It was a kind of imprisoned life that Jim had to endure. Finally, one day, as Jim is walking, he passes by a bar. Jim feels delighted to see that there is a human, standing as a bartender inside the bar. He rushes towards the bartender but becomes deeply disappointed when he realizes that the bartender is not a human, but a robot. However, the good thing is that this robot named Arthur has the ability to think and make decisions on its own. It can converse like a human and also provide responses. Arthur listens to Jim's sorrowful story. After hearing Jim's story, Arthur advises him to live bravely. Jim starts coming to him daily to drink and engages in numerous conversations with Arthur. In the spaceship, the concept of day and night is artificial. Burning dark lights means it is nighttime, and burning daylights means it is daytime. And these day and night periods are divided into 12-hour intervals. Jim tries very hard to enter the captain and crew members' room, so that he can wake them up and seek their help. But Jim is unable to do so because he doesn't have permission to enter the captain or crew member's room. It has been 8 months since Jim woke up. He has tried every effort to survive. His beard has also grown. He goes to Arthur every day and talks a lot, but a robot cannot fulfill the absence of a human. One day, Jim thinks why not jump into the space outside the ship without a spacesuit? By doing so, he will die within seconds. He also tries to do so, but he cannot gather the courage. He runs back for the return. He sees a beautiful girl in the meantime. The girl's name is Aurora. She is a writer by profession. Jim falls in love with the girl at first sight. He gathers all the information about her. Jim now goes to Aurora's pod every morning and evening and talks to her for hours. He also talks to his robot friend about Aurora. And this way, several months pass by. Jim can no longer bear loneliness. He decides one day that he will wake Aurora from her sleep. Jim, being a technician by profession, knows how to do it. He comes to Aurora's pod one day and creates a disturbance that wakes Aurora up. After that, Jim escapes and returns to his room. He is extremely scared because he knows he has done something wrong. He hides all those things that would make Aurora suspicious if she sees them. Aurora starts feeling weak, while computers keep giving her continuous instructions. The next day, Jim meets Aurora. He doesn't show at all that he already knew Aurora. Aurora asks him what is happening here. No human is visible. Are they all still asleep? If everyone else is asleep, then why did I wake up now? Jim tells her that the same thing happened to him. We both woke up before time. Aurora asks if Jim is a passenger or a crew member. Jim says he is a passenger. She asks how long it will take us to reach our destination. Jim answers 89 years. Now Aurora gets worried. She runs towards her pod to sleep again, but Jim explains to her that it is not possible. Jim and Aurora have dinner together. She tells Jim that she cannot give up. There must be a way to go back to a long sleep. Jim says it is of no use because he has tried every method for a year. As a result, they spend several days experimenting with the sleeping pods, but nothing works. Now Aurora is very upset about waking up prematurely, and on the other hand, Jim is very happy that his loneliness is over. Slowly, they both start getting closer to each other. And this proximity gradually transforms into love. They both accept that whatever happened to them was destined. Aurora is a writer, and after waking up, she starts writing a book in which she mentions all the events that happened with her. Jim also warns Arthur not to tell Aurora that she didn't wake up accidentally, but that he woke her up. Arthur assures him that he will never do such a thing. Jim's life feels like spring after Aurora wakes up. They both spend their days in boundless happiness. They play games, dance, watch movies, and have meals together. This was their life. They both become captivated by each other's love. One day, Jim creates a small device and uses it to send a message to Aurora to go on a date. Aurora agrees to go. Both of them wear spacesuits and come out of the ship. They look at the sparkling stars spread across the vast expanse of space. Time passes, and now it's Aurora's birthday. After having dinner, Aurora and Jim go to Arthur's place. All three of them are in a joyful mood. Jim gets up and goes to the washroom, taking out the ring from his pocket, which he was going to give to Aurora later. On the other hand, Arthur tells Aurora in the bar that Jim was so restless for you a year ago. Surprised, Aurora says that a year ago she was asleep, and Jim didn't even know her. Now, Arthur tells her the whole story of how Jim caused a malfunction in her sleeping pod to end his loneliness, causing her to wake up earlier than scheduled. Aurora is extremely shocked to hear this. She couldn't even imagine that the one who was going to sabotage her mission starting 120 years later was not someone else, but her lover Jim. Arthur reveals the secret to Aurora because Jim had recently told Arthur that there are no secrets between him and Aurora anymore. When Jim returns from the washroom, the entire scene outside has changed. Aurora asks him if he woke her up from sleep. Jim quietly confirms it. Aurora angrily tells Jim to stay away from her, calling him a cheater and a fraud. Jim tries hard to explain, but Aurora leaves in a state of intense sorrow and anger. They are completely separate from each other. Jim sits silently all day while Aurora continues to cry. One day, Aurora enters Jim's room and starts beating him badly. Jim also realizes that he has committed a great sin. That's why he silently endures the beating. Days pass, and during this time, various incidents occur on the spaceship. Sometimes the power goes out, and sometimes the robots start colliding with the walls on their own. Sometimes the elevator doesn't work, and sometimes the door doesn't open. It seemed like a major malfunction was occurring somewhere on the spaceship. The breakdown of things in the spaceship had become a new tragedy for Jim. Jim decides to visit the entire spaceship. He goes to a place where all the supplies for the human population on the new planet were stored. There were tools for farming, seeds for planting, and even a lab for conducting experiments. Another portion of the ship housed computer repair and other types of equipment. There was also a medical lab on the ship. All the necessary supplies were available to establish a human settlement on the new planet. As Jim is about to return after visiting the entire spaceship, a voice suddenly comes from the ship's hall. "Who planted this plant in my spaceship?" Both Jim and Aurora hear the voice and rush to the hall. They see that the captain had already woken up earlier than scheduled. The captain asks if someone else is awake or not. Jim says no, it's just the three of them. The captain says that some malfunction is occurring somewhere on the ship, causing the entire spaceship to gradually shut down. The captain becomes very worried, stating that the spaceship cannot become so weak. "We need to check it immediately." After waking up 32 years later, the captain feels very weak, but without worrying about himself, he starts searching for the malfunction occurring on the spaceship. Captain, whose name is Gus, can access every part of the ship due to his special protocol, and all the AI computers on the ship are bound to obey him. He checks Jim's sleeping pod, which was closed due to a malfunction, and finds that Jim woke up earlier than expected. However, Gus realizes that Aurora's sleeping pod was intentionally sabotaged. Captain, Jim, and Aurora join forces to inspect different sections of the ship, but they can't figure out what's happening. Meanwhile, night falls on the ship. Jim and the captain go to sleep, while Aurora heads towards the swimming pool to take a bath. During this time, the ship's gravity system stops working, and everything starts floating in space. Aurora, who is in the swimming pool at that moment, gets trapped in a large bubble of water due to the loss of gravity. Jim and Gus also start floating in space. In the meantime, Jim wakes up from his sleep. At that moment, the ship's gravity system becomes active, and everything suddenly falls downwards. They all rush to the captain's office. The small malfunctions on the ship had turned into severe threats. The three of them enter a holographic technical room and scan the entire spaceship. It is then revealed that 2 years ago, the ship collided with a meteorite, which caused hidden malfunctions to occur on the ship, and these malfunctions will continue to escalate until the ship is destroyed. They were currently researching this when Gus suddenly collapses unconscious. Jim and Aurora take him to the medical lab, where they discover that Gus only has a little time left to survive. The captain becomes extremely distressed upon hearing this. He puts on his uniform and sits in a place from where he can witness the beauty of space and its mysteries to his heart's content. Jim and Aurora sit with Gus. Gus hands them his ID band and tells them that they can use it to go anywhere on the ship. He urges them to find out as quickly as possible where the malfunction is. Afterward, Gus dies, and his body is gracefully sent off into space. The nature of the damage in the ship has become severe. Even Arthur starts breaking things due to the malfunction. Strange chaos ensues everywhere, and the temperature of the ship keeps rising. Jim and Aurora make every effort to quickly find the cause of the malfunction in the ship. Finally, they discover that the collision of space rocks has caused large holes in the ship. The hot air entering through these holes is causing damage to the ship's reactor. If the heat is not removed from the reactor, the entire ship will explode in a matter of moments, and everyone on board will die before reaching their destination. Jim commands the computer to remove the heat, but the heat-removing gate does not open. Jim tells Aurora that he needs to go outside himself to open the gate. He will go there and open the gate to release the heat. Aurora warns him that when the gate opens, the heat will pass through and he will not survive. But Jim insists that there is no other way. Jim gives Aurora Gus's ID band for safekeeping and leaves the ship. He takes a strong metal shield with him. Aurora, who has now developed feelings for Jim and has let go of her anger, embraces him and says that she doesn't want to lose him. Jim assures her not to worry, and that he will come back alive. The condition of the ship has worsened to the point where the reactor is about to explode. Both of them stand facing death. Jim opens the gate and instructs Aurora to pull the lever to remove the heat. Reluctantly, Aurora pulls the lever, and the heat rapidly escapes from the gate. Jim holds the gate firmly, but the pressure becomes too much for him to handle, and he is blown away from the ship. During this time, the wire connecting Jim's spacesuit also breaks. There is a hole in Jim's spacesuit, causing the oxygen level to decrease rapidly. He manages to float far away from the ship. Jim tells Aurora that he won't be able to return to the ship. However, Aurora couldn't bear the thought of never seeing Jim again. Ignoring Jim's refusal, she puts on a spacesuit and exits the ship. Jim appears as a distant point in her view. She tries to reach him, but loses the range of the safety wire, making it impossible for Aurora to catch him. Meanwhile, one end of Jim's safety wire touches Aurora's hand, allowing her to pull him towards her and bring him back into the ship. Jim appeared to have died due to the depletion of oxygen. Aurora, in her distress, places him in the medical pod, and through Gus's ID, gives instructions for various medical treatments. Jim's heartbeat is restored, and he returns to life. Afterward, the ship is completely repaired, with no major damage remaining. One day, Jim tells Aurora that he has found a way to return to cryosleep, but only one person can go back. He suggests that Aurora should go back to cryosleep, but she refuses. Then we see that 88 years have passed, and the ship has arrived near Homestead II. Jim and Aurora have lived out their lives. After 88 years, when the crew members and the remaining passengers of the ship wake up, they see a separate spaceship. Inside the ship, there are forests and chirping birds, welcome crew members. But who did all this? What happened in those 90 years? The crew members learn all these things from Aurora's book, which she wrote daily. And the story ends here. From this story, we learn 2 lessons. First, relationships are very important to us. The voices of the people around us keep us vibrant in life. And secondly, in this film, space travel and its dangers are portrayed beautifully. It shows that humans can mentally prepare themselves and their children for space travel, so that they can leave a mark on other planets. This film not only provides entertainment, but also educational content for the viewers.